You need to give him one of those starters flags for the Indy or the Grand Prix.
Red lights are probably good.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, and welcome to this Tuesday, May 15th, 2018 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me remind commissioners, please make sure your microphone is lighted green and speak into the mic for the record. And we'll call roll. Commissioner Wiggins.
Present.
Commissioner Armstrong.
Present.
Commissioner Bowie.
Present.
Commissioner Crane.
Present.
Commissioner Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Meiske.
Present.
Commissioner Urquia. Mayor Turnbow.
Present.
And Commissioner Faulkner is present. We have no personal appearances scheduled this evening. 3 items on the consent agenda, and let me note for the record, I will abstain from the vote on the consent agenda since it contains case 18-009, second replat of Kirby Estates, and I am an adjacent property owner to that. Let me also note that there's one correction. You should have a page in front of you with a single minor correction to the minutes from our April 17th, 2018 meeting. So unless there's any discussion or any other need to split items off the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to accept consent agenda with noted correction, or consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Meiske.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. And a second by Commissioner Crane. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 6. I have 6 in favor. Any opposed and abstentions?
I abstain.
Right. Which way were you?
Abstention.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let's do this one more time. So I have 5 in favor.
Yep.
None opposed, 3 abstentions. Okay. Thank you. And abstentions, Commissioner Bowie, Commissioner Armstrong, and Commissioner Faulkner. All right, give me a second here. And moving along, nothing this evening under old business, and our first case this evening under new business, case 18007, Brightside Daycare site plan at 845 East Walnut Street. And is the applicant present to present your case? Would you like to come forward to the podium, please, and present this? Thank you.
My name is Leslie Pierce.
Make sure that's green. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it works a lot better. Thank you.
My name is Leslie Pierce, and my husband and I, Ryan, are owners of Brightside Children's Center. We're located on 58 and J, right on the corner. We've been in business now for 11 years, and we are currently have 2 buildings. Our preschool building is about 5,000 square feet, and right next door we have an infant center that's about 3,000 square feet. We are licensed for 106 children a day, but we have about 140 children enrolled in our program. And we also currently have a very, very, very large waiting list of over 100 children. And we've had that for probably about 8 years. We've been full since maybe the 2nd year that we've been in the business. So we are, with our waiting list growing, my husband and I thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to expand our business. So we are asking to build a third building that's about 5,500 square feet, located in the Sunrise Commons area. I would really appreciate your consideration on this because I know that you too care about this community just as much as we do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's good. Mr. Grass, will you give us the staff report on case 18006, please?
Sure, thank you. As Ms. Pierce indicated, the applicant this evening is seeking site plan approval for not only the 5,400 square foot daycare building, but also a potential expansion of a 5,000 square foot auxiliary building that would serve the property at a later date. The project is really divided up into two phases. The first phase being the daycare facility that the applicant spoke about, with again the potential for a second phase at some later date that would include a possible auxiliary space for the daycare facilities that currently exist on the property. As she mentioned, the property is located generally near the intersection of 58 Highway and J, kind of close to the Windsor Commons area, the Casey's gas station, if you're familiar with that area, just a little bit to the west of that building. I provided an aerial photograph that shows the proposed site plan overlaid the existing property as it sits today, as well as some property photographs that show the existing conditions, views from the southern property line, what it looks like across 58, and so on. Moving on to page number 5. The existing zoning of the property is our M1 light industrial, and a daycare facility is a permitted use within that zoning district, subject to a couple special conditions, which I'll touch on here in just a few minutes. Surrounding the site, just to the north, there's undeveloped and ag land just on the other side of 58 Highway. To the south, there's light industrial with some equipment storage just south of the property. To the east is the existing daycare facility, in addition to some professional office spaces there in the Windsor Commons development. And then to the west is also undeveloped land, which is currently zoned M1 light industrial. Overall, the site is about 1.7 acres. It is located in the existing Bush Industrial Park plat, which, as you approved on the consent agenda, they have proposed to replat to include spaces for the facility itself, as well as just an overall replat of the subdivision as it exists today. The future land use map in the GMP classifies this area as appropriate for business park development, which would fall under the same category as the daycare facility or the existing office spaces that are surrounded by the or surround the facility. And the major street plan map in the GMP classifies East Walnut Street as a major arterial. City ordinance does not require advertisement for site plans or a public hearing this evening, so there's no public hearing scheduled. I've outlined the requirements and standards for site plan approval for y'all's consideration this evening, and I'll move forward to touch on some of the previous actions near the property. As I mentioned, the property is located in the existing Bush Industrial Park plat, which was approved by the City Council on August 27th of 1990. A replat of Bush Industrial Park Tract 4, which created the subject property, was approved, recorded on June 11th, 1996. And then just to the east, the Windsor Commons of Raymore plat, a replat of Bush Industrial Park Tract 4, was approved by the City of Raymore on February 12th, 2007. And then the site plan for Windsor Commons of Raymore, the office buildings that exist to the west, was approved by the Planning Commission on March 7th of 2006. The engineering division has reviewed the site plan and indicated that it does comply with all these standards for the City of Raymore and recommended approval of the application. Any specific comments that they had are attached to the memorandum in the back of your packet. Some of the staff comments for the property, the development standards as far as setbacks, maximum building height, building coverage, and things of that nature for the M1 Light Industrial District are provided for you all this evening. And then the second comment there, the special conditions for a daycare facility. There's 3 of them, just saying that they must be licensed and comply with all the state local laws and facilities for that type of facility. Any outdoor areas used by the facility as recreational areas must be enclosed by a fence of at least 42 inches, which is shown on the site plan for the facility. And the daycare homes and centers must include a designated safe unloading or drop-off zone for children, which has also been included on the site plan. So the proposed site plan is in compliance with all 3 special conditions for a daycare facility for the UDC. As far as parking between the daycare facility and then the future event space or auxiliary building, a total of 35 spaces are required between those two buildings. The applicant, based on their site plan, has provided 78 total spaces, so it meets and exceeds the requirements for the city of Raymore, and the number of parking spaces that are required to be ADA accessible meet and exceed the minimum requirements as well. So the proposed site plan does comply with all the parking requirements of the UDC. Landscaping, the adequate landscaping is provided, including the type B screening that is required along the eastern property line. If you look at the zoning map included in your packet, you'll see that the property is currently zoned M1 light industrial, but the property to the east is zoned C2P, which is our general commercial plan district. So because those two zoning districts are different, the type B screening is required to kind of offset the visual impact of the two similar uses, but two separate zoning districts requires a screen between the two properties, and that has been reflected on the landscape plan as well. The building design for this evening, the applicant has provided a couple of renderings of what the building will look like. If you're familiar with the building at all, it will look extremely similar to the existing facility, just mirrored a little bit to line up the outdoor play areas, to line those up together, but it'll be almost an exact replica of the existing facility. I do have an example of what the brick will look like, as well as the stucco finish, so I can pass these around as soon as we wrap up the staff report if you all would like to take a look at them. Pedestrian access to the site has been provided to connect to the existing sidewalk along 58 Highway. So that will take pedestrians from the sidewalk on 58 to the front door of the daycare facility along that eastern property line with the landscaping that we just spoke about. As far as signage, master plan was not submitted with the application. Signage isn't approved as part of the site plan, but moving forward, any modifications to a sign or any addition to a sign would require review and submission of a permit by the applicant, would be reviewed by staff. The site plan was shared with South Metro Fire District, who had concerns about the ability to serve the site via a fire hydrant. So per the request, a fire hydrant was added to the site between the two proposed buildings to provide access for South Metro to get in there and address any emergencies that might occur in the future. As far as stormwater, it will be collected on site and discharged into a retention pond that's located just off of 58 Highway. And they've actually designed more of a regional detention facility, which will not only serve the property we're talking about this evening, but also has the potential to serve the larger tract to the west of the site that's also zoned M1 light industrial. So any development that occurs off of site will have to do some stormwater treatment to treat the water before it enters the facility. But as far as retention of the water, it is designed to handle any offsite or any runoff that occurs on site. The proposed lighting plan does comply with all of the outdoor lighting standards for the city. Will be a series of pole lights and lights mounted on the building for safety and security during the nighttime. So the property will be well lit. The trash enclosure, the site plan does include 2 trash enclosures, one for each phase of the building, or each phase of the site for the daycare facility and the event space, and they're located off to the western kind of portion of the site itself. The landscape plan does show adequate screening around any electrical or mechanical equipment, such as AC or HVAC equipment that might be located on the outside. So anything that is required to be screened was shown on the site plan with adequate screening. And then, of course, access to the site will be provided primarily off of 58 Highway. There's a driveway or an access drive that connects to 58 Highway that will serve not only this site, but any future development that occurs to the west. That access drive will also serve development on that site in the future. Staff did submit proposed findings of fact for your consideration this evening, and looking forward ahead of the schedule since Planning Commission does have final approval over site plans. Tonight is the only action required for this request. Overall, staff does recommend approval of the site plan for the Brightside Daycare Center, case 18007, subject to the conditions as presented. That concludes staff report at this time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the applicant might be better off answering any more specific questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Grass. Any discussion from the commission, questions or comments? Okay. Yeah, I have 2, Mr. Grass. So one was probably more related to the second replat, but I think I noticed that the proposed daycare footprint is on Lot 1, which is separate from Tract A, is that correct?
That is correct.
Just curious.
So it'd be similar, so the Tract A would be more so, I guess you could call it common area of the property where you'd find the parking lot, sidewalks and things of that nature, whereas Lot 1 would be the daycare facility itself.
Right.
Later on, if they decide to move forward with the auxiliary building, they would have to do another replat that would likely be Lot 2, where that facility would sit, and then everything else that would remain in Tract A would be the common area, so landscaping, parking lot, the detention facility.
I guess I was just wondering, would that facilitate the sale of one building independent of another, or just curious the motivation?
It would make it possible to sell those two buildings off individually. I know the applicant can probably speak to a little more. I believe it's the property is owned by the family, and the daycare facility, I believe, will be run by Mrs. Pierce herself, and then I believe other members of her family might have an interest in the expansion of the lot, the expansion of the building in the future.
Sure, that's fine. The other question, I actually looked at all these things. Hopefully it's not a waste of paper. The drainage area map, in particular, sheet 4 of 7. And again, I think I'm just curious, but if I'm reading this correctly, so it shows the proposed site with both buildings, but to the west, it's also showing 33,000 square feet of impervious and a detention pond. And so I guess what I'm wondering, so somewhere I think this is called an area map. I don't believe that property to the west is really part of this site plan, but it seems like it kind of is because it's critical to the water runoff. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the footprint of the potential building you see to the west was really the maximum allowable impervious surface that would be allowed on that site. And that was used to kind of calculate the maximum size needed for the detention facility, since it was designed to handle runoff for both sites together.
So the detention facility that's part of this site plan, is it strictly the north side of this particular property, or does it include the detention on the property to the west?
It includes the detention on the property to the west.
Okay. That worries me only from the standpoint of we don't have any legal control over that property to the west, or do we?
That is a very good question. I don't know, maybe the project engineer could address that. I don't know what conversations the applicant has had with the adjoining property owner to design that facility.
Yeah.
Kevin Sterrett, HG Consult, civil engineer on this project. Yeah, we've actually worked with that owner to the west. It's Randy Spalding, who actually is the same person who sold this lot to her mother. And he and I have been working on this as a regional to provide him a detention when he comes in for the site plan for his new building at some time in the future. And so we've sized it to accommodate what he will do in the future as well.
Right.
And so he's familiar with it. It's all actually within an existing easement, the utility easement anyway. So, but he's comfortable with what we're showing, and I'll probably end up coming back to you with doing the design on his site as well.
So my only real concern, and I realize that when we do developments, Willow Wind comes to mind, although that's quite a while ago, but I know that we have shared parking and certainly shared stormwater detention. So that's not really a surprise. I guess I'm just trying to figure, worst case, if the property to the west never develops, are we going to have adequate stormwater control for the Brightside property?
Yes.
I guess it'd be just an agreement between the two of them for the maintenance thereof. I know he's already.
For the maintenance of the facility itself would be between the two property owners.
Mr. Rokos, you comfortable with this?
Yes, combined drainage areas and detention ponds are very common. And even if something doesn't develop, they still need to have that detention for that property. And so it would have to be a joint use to keep it maintained and keep it operational.
Okay, so our understanding is that the detention on the property to the west would be completed as part of development of the Brightside property?
Correct.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Other
Mr. Chair?
questions?
Yeah,
Mayor Turnbull.
as a follow-on to that, David, so if this is passed tonight, I know there's one condition there that you have under your recommendation for the 20-foot wide driveway easement. Could we add a secondary condition, given that there would be an MOU or an agreement with Mr. Spalding for use of that particular land for the water detention, so that could be, for approval of this particular, so you can move this project forward, that also be a condition?
Yes, I believe it could. One of the requirements of having this facility is a maintenance agreement in itself, just between the property owner. But one thing they could work on is a kind of a partnership agreement between this property owner and Mr. Spalding, just including language in that agreement between the both properties. So you could absolutely do that.
Okay.
Is applicant comfortable with that?
I'm speaking on her behalf, I believe so. Yeah, like I say, this is something we've been working on for quite a few
Okay.
months with Randy on
It
this.
sounds like it is, and I would admit I'm kind of worst case, just things don't always work according to plan. Mr. Zer?
Chairman, if I might, I would simply identify that as potentially a joint easement and maintenance agreement between the property owners as to the relation of that
Right.
detention area.
And I do see on the map that is an easement, so I am a little more comfortable with it than I was originally. Thank you.
So it would simply be a maintenance agreement.
Okay.
So would that be, maintenance agreement, would that be perhaps like a condition 12, or Mr. Zer?
Yes. Sorry, Chairman. Yes, I'd identify that as a perpetual condition number 12, which would be the joint maintenance agreement and any necessary easement that would be affiliated with that. It doesn't appear that a new easement would be required.
Does not?
It does not. It
Right.
would need to be a maintenance agreement between the two of them as to the use of that easement.
Thank you.
Good. Okay.
Other questions, comments? I guess I shouldn't put anyone on the spot and say names. Would any of the commissioners care to make a motion on case 18007 Brightside Daycare Site Plan?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Crane.
I move that we accept staff's proposed findings of facts and subject to the 11 provided conditions, and additionally a 12th condition that a maintenance agreement be drawn up between the adjacent property owner and this person, and that we approve case 18007 Brightside Daycare Center site plan and forward to, oh, we don't have to forward.
Right.
And just approve the case.
Yeah, you can stop there. Thank you.
There you go.
Sound like a good motion?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Pfizer. All right, let's see. So we have a motion.
Discussion, if I could,
Yes, Mayor
on that.
Turnbull.
Did you say 07? Is it 06 or 07?
07.
It is 07?
I'm sorry.
Okay. It is 07?
Have I got
Okay.
that?
Because I
Yeah.
have in my packet here is 06.
Yeah, I apologize. It's kind of easy to get these two confused, but
Okay.
they're sequential. So what this should be is 18007.
Yep.
Site plan. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's good. Always good to check. So we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Crane, second by Commissioner Pfizer, to accept case 18007 Brightside Daycare Site Plan and accept staff proposed findings of fact, subject to the following 11 conditions that are noted, and an added condition 12 regarding a joint maintenance agreement between the Brightside property owners and the property to the west for stormwater detention. And the motion also to approve the site plan, subject to those conditions. Is that close?
That was perfect.
Thank you. Any further discussion on case 18007? All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 8. I have 8 in favor. None opposed. No abstentions. And if I can take a second and shuffle some paper here, that will take us to case 18010, Kirby Estates rezoning, and I will recuse myself from this case as an adjacent property owner and turn the commission over to Vice Chair Fizer.
Thank you. Okay, our next case is 18010, rezoning Kirby Estates from A to PO zoning. Would the applicant please come forward?
Before we get started, I'm going to broadcast a PowerPoint material screen. I just wanted to make you aware so you're not alarmed when I change the screen here.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Carnes, and I am the Vice President of Operations for Compass Health, and I serve as the Regional Vice President of Operations. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us to come and speak with you tonight about our application. Thanks, Jim. We're very excited about this project. We hope that Cass County is going to become excited with us about this project. So as I have brought some just brief remarks, very brief, just to kind of give you a broad overview of Compass Health as an agency across the state of Missouri, as well as our presence in Cass County, how long we've been here, and specifically what our intentions are and our plans are for this local facility that we're hoping to construct. Let's see, did I get this right? There we go. So if you see on your monitors, Compass Health, we picture that as a large umbrella. It's a network, which underneath that you see Pathways Community Health, which you probably know us by that name in this local community. We have been here for quite some time. Our current facility is located at 1010 Remington Plaza. We've been at that location for approximately 6 years. We built that in 2012. We have had a merger with Kreider Healthcare approximately 5 years ago, and they are also they're a part of our network, and they're on the eastern side of the state near St. Louis. Royal Oaks Hospital is located in Windsor, Missouri, and is an inpatient facility that is also a part of our network. Some of you may have heard of that. So Compass Health is the overarching umbrella network entity. So if you look at our presence in Cass County, originally, I'm going to go outside Cass County for a second. I'm going to go to Henry County because that's where Pathways originally started. In 1972, as community counseling consultants, excuse me, we started off with 10 employees. 10. We have approximately 2,500 now. So it's been a exponential growth, I would say. West Central Missouri Mental Health Center, for those of you who can remember that presence a very long time ago, formed in 1970, and their purpose and their mission was to provide mental health and substance use disorder services in Johnson, Lafayette, and Cass counties. We, as in Pathways, merged with that entity in 1997 and became a joint force in our combined vision and mission in Cass County, among others. We currently have offices in Raymore, Harrisonville, and provide services in Belton. We provide school-based services in Belton and have done that for about 11 years now. So if you look at this map of Missouri, you would see this broad stretch between Kansas City and St. Louis. That's our service area. That's the area that we provide active services in on a day-in, day-out basis. We serve 45 counties in Missouri, and we provide services in over 60 locations within those counties. As I mentioned before, we have approximately 2,500 employees, and we have 118 employed here within Cass County. So I'm going to step off this for a second. Currently in our Raymore office, in our Raymore offices, because we have and let me digress for a second. We've outgrown our existing facility to the point where I've had to move 4 teams off-site and lease a facility, actually on Walnut, interestingly enough. So we have greatly exceeded that space. So within those 2 offices, and I always picture that as the Raymore office, we currently have 88 people employed in that space, in this location. The new facility that we are designing, that we're anticipating, that we're hoping that you support us in, would double that. We would be providing approximately 170 employees would be located within this location, within this office. That's a considerable increase. If you look at the 3rd bullet point, you would see that in 2017, now that's, when I went and I pulled the data for this, I looked at strictly from July 1st through the end of April, when we had good data. And at that point, we had already provided services to 178,000, over 178,000 people. That's not services, that's unique, individual, non-replicating people across Missouri. We served, in that same time frame, close to 5,000 people within Cass County. In Raymore, this question came up at the meet and greet a couple of weeks ago, so I wanted to attend to that. At this location, 63% of the services are provided to adults and 37% are provided to children. Now, the last bullet point, I want to highlight that, 37,613 telehealth sessions provided in 2017 across the agency. So one of the unique things about our Raymore facility is that it is the home to what we call a psychiatric hub. So we employ about 40 psychiatrists full-time across our agency. And try as we might, we can't get those psychiatrists to move to Eldon, Missouri and Salem, Missouri and all those little small. They like living in Overland Park and they like living in Columbia. So what we do is we use Raymore as one of our facilities, Raymore in Columbia, and we have telehealth hubs there. So we have psychiatrists. We also provide face-to-face care, but we have psychiatrists who are basically sitting in an office interacting with a patient who may be sitting in Salem, Missouri or Eldon, Missouri. And that way we're able to kind of overcome some of those geographic hurdles and those transportation hurdles that rural folks frequently have. So that has proven to be a very successful model of care for us, and that we're able to provide increased access to services that way. I anticipate with this new facility that we're going to be able to double our capacity to do that, while at the same time still serving Cass County residents with face-to-face psychiatry, double our capacity to do that as well. So if you're looking at these next 2 facilities that are up, these are 2 facilities that we have built. Well, Warrensburg, that's my base office. Last year, we opened that facility last year, and then our Wentzville office, which is built in 2010. I included this in the presentation just to give you an idea of, I think, the caliber of facilities that we build. They're nice facilities, they look nice, they complement the environment that they're in, they blend with the environment that they're in, and it's always our desire to come in and blend with our communities. And these are great facilities, and I, for one, had a big hand in the Warrensburg facility, and I'm proud of that one. I'm proud of both of them because I think they really reflect who we are as an agency well. The next 2 facilities, they are not ours, but we wanted to include these just to give you an idea of more or less what we're leaning towards, just some of the aesthetics of the building that we're leaning towards. We anticipate that this is going to be a modified 3-story building. We're anticipating that it's going to be between 55,000 square feet. And when I say modified 3-story, what I'm talking about is utilizing some of the natural grade of the property itself, incorporating the pond that is located on the grounds as well, shaping the building around the edge of that to make that a focal point of the property itself, doing a build out on the lower floor so that folks can walk out directly onto that pond area, main level being the second, and then having a tiered 3rd level. So there's some aspects of these facilities that we see that we could incorporate into our upcoming facility. Just to give you an idea of kind of what we're about locally, wanted to emphasize, because this is always a big concern for our local communities, I wanted to emphasize that these services that we're providing currently and anticipated in the future are office and community-based only. These are not residential services. That always, I think, can be sometimes jarring to the public, understandably, but we gave our assurances at the meet and greet and wanted to give that to you as well. These are outpatient and community-based services. We anticipate in continuing to have outpatient mental health services, psychologists, psychology testing, outpatient therapy. I anticipate that we're going to double our capacity for outpatient therapy. We currently, well, I anticipate that we're probably going to go up to 25 therapy offices. Imagine that, if you will, the capacity of that. Psychiatric health and wellness. So that includes our psychiatrist, of course, that would be providing services in-house to Cass County residents, as well as a portion of those working to provide services via telehealth throughout the state of Missouri. We would also have our community-based workers who are frequently, when they work with adults and kids, their sole focus is to go out into the community. They spend 90% of their time out in the community. They're here already. They're going into schools. They're working with kids in schools. They're working with folks in the community, and their sole responsibility is to help keep folks stable so that they're doing well in the community and continuing to work towards their own personal goals and fulfillment. A new aspect of services for us will be family medicine and primary care. We are providing this service along with dental in other locations, but this will be a new service, a book of business for Raymore. We're excited about this, to bring primary care and dental services to Raymore. I think it's going to be greatly beneficial for this community. We intend to have a pharmacy as well, but that is going to be strictly limited to Compass Health patients. So we're not going to have the public in and out. We're not going to have a drive-through or anything like that. All right, we anticipate that folks are going to be leaving their doctor's appointments, and they'll stop in the lobby and they'll fill their prescription on the way out the door. So it's a convenience factor for them. Our hours, we do have some evening groups Monday through Thursday. We want to provide as much access to care as we can, so folks work and kids go to school. So we find that if you make evening hours available, folks will come. So our hours Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Fridays, we shut down at 5 p.m. Occasionally we will have some services, outpatient services on Saturdays, but we're not currently do that, so I didn't put that up there. But that is something we would, and our Saturday hours generally go like 8 to 12. So, but it's outpatient services, outpatient therapy. Well, that's not very visible on this. I'm sure you guys have a better view of it than I do. So that just gives you the broad overview of kind of where the property is located within the community, and you can see the immediate surroundings and where the businesses are located. You see that lovely pond on the facility, on the property that we're excited about developing out and incorporating into the overall atmosphere and the feel of the property. That's a more specific, this next slide is a more specific drilled down version of the previous slide. Now this mentions, I cannot read it, but I believe it says that 60,000 square feet. We don't anticipate that it's going to be quite that big. We're shooting between 50 and 55. That's our sweet spot right there. But you also see that parking lot is pretty comprehensive. It is 250 spaces, which it's a lot of parking spots. Now, one thing I neglected to mention on a previous slide, in addition to those services, two areas that we did not talk about. We're going to have a training center that will accommodate 50 people, tiered seating, which is very similar to a college classroom. That will be providing training to our employees, bringing them in from generally regionally and providing some training to them. For example, right now we're about to have all kinds of training that I've booked a lot of time with Centerview to get some employees trained. We're also going to have what we called an event center. So this basically would just hold about 250 people seated within our own facility in the basement. So I think that's going to give us better better space, better opportunity to bring our staff together, to do training, to do kind of annual or quarterly staff meetings, such as that. That's all I have for you, but I'm sure you guys have questions, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Go into the staff report next.
Thank you. Just to make sure before I begin, are you all able to see the staff reports on your screen now that I canceled the broadcast, or is the PowerPoint still up?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So as the applicant mentioned, Compass Health Network, a branch, or I'm sorry, Pathways Community Health, a branch of Community Health, or Compass Health Network, is requesting on behalf of the current property owner, VOE LLC, another current resident here in the city of Raymore, is requesting to rezone about 8.23 acres from the existing A agricultural zoning district to a PO professional office district. I've provided a general location map. It's generally located at the northeast corner of Missouri 58 and Sunset Lane, not right up on the corner, but pushed back kind of towards the end of where Sunset Lane currently ends. Kind of just as you're exiting Price Choppers at Access Drive, it's really the back portion of that property back there near the pond. And I provided a current zoning district that shows the existing zoning, A, agricultural. It's kind of surrounded by some single-family, multifamily zoning there to the west, some existing professional office to the south, in addition to some commercial zoning closer to 58 Highway. The growth management plan, the future land use map, actually identifies this property as appropriate for low-density residential. I'll kind of get into some more detail of why we think this property might be better suited as a professional office as I get further into the staff report. But in addition to that, the major street plan classifies 58 Highway as a major arterial and Sunset Lane as a minor collector. Since the meeting tonight is a public hearing, this meeting was advertised in the April 26th edition of the Journal newspaper. And items of record for this evening include the mailed notices to adjoining property owners, notice of publication in the Journal, the Unified Development Code, the application itself, the growth management plan, the staff report, as well as the applicant's conceptual site plan that you saw previously. I've outlined the requirements for a zoning map amendment for you all this evening. And just to move into some of the previous planning actions near the property, kind of dig into some of the other changes that have occurred to the property throughout the years. To start off, the original plat for Kirby Estates was originally approved by the city on July 11th of 1983, so quite some time ago. And then the Kirby Estates was replatted and further subdivided and approved on January 27th of 1992. So again, still quite some time ago. The land, the 1.8 acres that's just generally north to the site, the existing professional office zoning district, that was actually rezoned from agricultural to professional office on March 10th of 1997. And that property is actually owned or will be owned by the applicant pending tonight's decision. But that property is also owned by the VOE LLC. It's just not shown on that map because it's currently zoned the professional office already. The 5.6 acres to the south of the site that's currently zoned C2 general commercial, kind of along 58, that was rezoned from agricultural to C2 on March 10th of 1997. And then to the north, the preliminary plat for the Madison Valley subdivision, which exists directly to the north of the site. That preliminary plat was approved on September 27th of 2004. However, the remainder of the undeveloped portion of that subdivision, the preliminary plat has actually expired on that property. So any development moving forward will have to kind of start over from scratch as far as residential development is concerned. The tract of land to the west, which is commonly referred to as the Raymore Senior Village, was platted and actually rezoned from our R2 single and two family district to an R3B apartment community residential district, and that was approved by the city on September 24th of 2012. So just kind of gives you a background of the changes that have occurred as far as zoning kind of throughout the last several years. A good neighbor meeting was held on May 2nd here in the council chambers of City Hall. 14 residents did attend the meeting along with city staff and staff from Compass Health. We had a lot of really good questions that evening, a lot of good discussion. I won't really go into the specifics of each one of these questions, but some of the major concerns had to do with stormwater runoff, the lighting of the site, and things of that nature. And while a lot of those things aren't necessarily 100% figured out by the applicant yet, because they're still early on in the development process, all of those concerns will be addressed as the applicant moves forward with their project through site plan and site plan approval and things of that nature. So a lot of those questions couldn't really be answered 100% at that meeting just because they haven't gotten too far into that process yet. But there are codes and ordinances that the applicant will have to follow to make sure that those concerns are addressed as they continue to develop the site. One question that did come up, and I just wanted to address in case that resident has any an inkling to go back through the meeting. The question was asked if there was any association with their existing facility after that was built with an increase in crime or criminal activity. So we didn't know of any today, but we followed up with our police department, and in the last 5 years there have been 90 calls to the facility, but all 90 of those have been requested by the facility for assistance. So if you have a very anxious patient that might need some assistance, dealing with the mental health services, you want to be as safe as possible to get the services that you need. So any emergency services, ambulance, police calls that have been dispatched to the facility have been requested by the owners of the facility. There have been no calls to the facility to address any criminal activity on that site whatsoever. Moving on to the staff comments, as I mentioned before, the property directly south, which is also owned by the applicant, was rezoned to its existing PO on March 10th of 1997. And then one thing I wanted to touch on as well, the development standards for the property as well as the permitted uses. The applicant did a good job of kind of explaining what their intention was for the property, but since we're not here to approve a site plan, what we're really looking at is the overall use of a property as a whole. So I mean, while we talked about the use of the property as a medical office, there's a whole additional slew of uses that could also occur within a PO zoning classification, which I've listed here on the table for you all this evening. So something else just to think about. We think this site would be a great fit for a medical facility. If by chance, hopefully not, if that plan doesn't eventually fall through, there's a whole number of other uses that could also fall into that or professional office zoning classification. Staff did provide findings of fact for your consideration this evening. And again, one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was the difference in the future land use map and kind of what the applicant is proposing here. As I mentioned on the future land use map, it's actually identified as appropriate for single family residential development as opposed to professional office. Just in looking at the site, I doubt you'd have had a chance to go look at the site itself because it's kind of hard to get to at this point. But just in looking at the natural topography of the site, the existing pond, the amount of developable space that's really on the site wouldn't really lend itself to the type of single-family housing that you see here in Raymore without filling in the pond and doing some significant grading to the site. The number of lots that you could really fit on the site is severely limited. And with the existing R1 single-family zoning to the north, I mean, that property would be well more suited and likely occur before any development on this property would, just because of the natural topography and other natural features that exist on the site. In addition to that, it also supports one of the economic opportunity goals in the growth management plan, and that's to retain existing businesses and encourage the expansion of existing businesses. As the applicant mentioned, they own an existing facility in the community which they outgrew very, very quickly, and they are hoping to kind of use this property as their flagship office to expand services that they currently offer as well as add new services that they don't already offer in Raymore. So we think, weighing those two options out, we do think that this property would be better suited as perhaps as a professional medical office than as a single-family residential development as identified on that future land use map. And then in addition, the applicant did submit their proposed conceptual site plan. It's, like I said, nothing is final, and the rezoning has no really teeth to hold them to this design. This is just kind of what they have envisioned so far as they continue to program the different services that they're looking for. Looking ahead at the review of information in this case, tonight at May 15th in front of the Planning Commission, it will move forward to City Council for first reading on June 11th and then for second reading on June 25th. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning from agricultural to professional office for this site. That would conclude staff report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, and I'm sure the applicant can answer any specific questions that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff for the applicant?
I have one.
Okay.
And I realize this is probably out of the scope just a little bit, but it did bring up an interesting point. Sunset Lane, how far is it going to go? Just to the edge of, to that edge of the property, or is it going to?
It'll go to the very northern edge of their property.
And that'll be it?
Yes.
Okay.
at this point. As development occurs on further north, it'll be extended further and further north, but in terms of this project, just a northern property line.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
I do like the whole job creation, you know, bringing more jobs to the city. I think that's important. What has been, and this is maybe for staff, what has been kind of the history of this request? Is this the first request of this kind?
As far for this property specifically, or just a rezoning of this type?
The rezoning of this.
This is the first one that I've seen since I've been here. I've only been here a year, so perhaps Mr. Carteret can give maybe a more in-depth history of this property, or maybe other requests that the city has had for facilities similar to this one.
It's not really for the facility, but it's for this particular property to be rezoned.
This would be the first request to reclassify the zoning that you currently see. This zoning was put in place, the strip of professional office and the commercial zoning was put into place back, I think, 1997 timeframe, but there have been no requests to reclassify the zoning since then.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion then?
Chairman?
Okay.
There is a public hearing on this matter. We'll
Right.
need to make sure and open and close that public hearing and take any testimony that you might have at that public hearing.
Okay, then we will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to come forward and speak? Okay, then we will close the public hearing. And now, if anyone would like to make a motion, or if anybody has any other comments or questions first. Okay. Don't all push at once.
I'll give it a shot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Meiske.
I'll make a motion to forward case 18010, Kirby Estate rezoning A to PO to City Council for approval.
Second.
Did I do it right?
Did you adopt the staff findings of fact?
With the adoption of the city finding of facts, okay.
And is that the second as well?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay. We have a proposal to accept the staff's proposed findings of fact and forward case 18010, rezoning of Kirby Estates from A Agriculture District to PO Professional Office District to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. All in favor? Okay, that's everyone. I'm going to assume no one's opposed. So the case will be forwarded on to City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Zerr, I do have a question. If should we have one abstention since he
recused himself. That's already been noted in the
Okay.
terms of the record
Okay.
at this point.
All right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but excellent question, sir.
You can come back now.
Let's see. I got all the hard stuff left. Mr. Zerr, City Council report?
I'm happy to provide that just real quickly, making sure we note for the record your return to the dais for chairing the remainder of the meeting.
Yeah.
As far as the City Council's report is concerned, I'm happy to be able to provide that. Your last meeting was on April 17th, 2018. Since that time, we've had 2 City Council meetings, and I have a couple of things to report from those. The first is a April 23rd, 2018 meeting of the City Council, where the aerial photography project submitted by Mark was approved by the Council. That will allow Mr. Carteret to obtain updated aerial photographs for all of your future land use and development applications that are brought before the city. Very helpful for you. moving forward so that we can make sure and keep pace with the continuing development of the city. The next item that was approved at that 23rd meeting was the 2018 curb replacement contract, only pertinent for those individuals that are looking to have curbs improved or repaired or replaced within the front of their property. And then last but not least on that meeting, we had the governing body of the Planning and Zoning Commission council determination on who would be serving, and I'm very happy to report that the mayor has agreed to again serve on this Planning and Zoning Commission as representative from the council. Mayor, thank you very much. That's all I have with regard to that meeting. Of course, I'd invite Mr. Carteret and the mayor to chime in with anything else that they're aware of that they think that needs to be quoted from that. And seeing none, I'll move on to the last night's city council meeting. Last night's city council meeting had a couple of items on there that are of interest for the commission. First was the approval, the first reading of the 27th Amendment to the UDC. You would recall that includes the accessory uses that we have labored over as part of this commission. You all had the opportunity to review it on multiple occasions. In fact, this is something that has been bantered around within the city and the UDC for years now, I believe, is what Mr. Carteret would say. And he has reported, I believe, that I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that we are really the cutting edge with regard to the accessory uses and having a code provision available or code provisions available to address that within the metropolitan area. So would congratulate this commission for their work on that, as well as staff for their continued dedication to it and the ability to get that 27th Amendment at least past its first reading. The second item on the last night's city council meeting that may be of interest, and it will be dependent upon how close you are to it, but the Elm Street Water Tower had a lease agreement provision provided for it so that it would allow for its removal and a replacement tower to go into its place. So if any of you live within close proximity to that tower, you should see changes in the landscape and the skyline shortly. The last item I have for that meeting was the 2008 sidewalk project, where the sidewalks were identified, and I'm sure Mr. Rokos can provide additional information on this if you have questions related to where those sidewalks are going in. I would note that there were a couple of very nice proclamations provided by the mayor, including recognition for the National Peace Officers Memorial Week, which is this week, the Public Works Week proclamation, and recognition of Monique Lewis for her receipt of the Senior Service Award recipient from the Lieutenant Governor from the state of Missouri. Those are all the items that I have from last night's meeting that I believe would be of pertinence or interest to this commission. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and again would look to both Mr. Carteret and the mayor for any additional supplementation that they feel is necessary. Nope. Okay.
Okay.
Did my
Thank
job.
you, Mr. Zur.
Yep.
And let's move ahead to staff report. Mr. Carteret, if you'd like to start that off.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of items. I want to talk a little bit about building permit activity that's occurring this year. In 2017, we actually had a somewhat of a record year for new home construction, where that was the highest total we had in the previous 10 years. So we felt really good about activity last year. We're actually slightly ahead of that pace this year. I don't know that we'll match what we did last year because we had a strong summer and fall as well, but it's pleasing to see from a budget standpoint and from a growth standpoint to see the number of rooftops. I comment all the time that Raymore is a place that people want to live. And there's a lot of reasons why they want to live here. That continues to show in our permit records that we keep pace with the big players in the metro area. Last year we were number 7, and that was ahead of Blue Springs, ahead of Shawnee, so major players in the home building area. So I'm very proud of that fact. We continue to be a desired location for residents. The assessed valuation of the new homes being constructed is high, so that certainly helps the community as well. And even our commercial activity is staying strong so far this year. Certainly hope for a lot more to occur as the year goes on. As we look for our upcoming schedule, we will have a meeting on June 5th in a couple of weeks. We have actually 2 items on the agenda. We have the 14th phase of the Westbrook subdivision. So this would be a phase that would be just to the east of the clubhouse. So this phase actually extends 163rd Street a little bit closer to Madison, and allows for, it's a smaller phase subdivision, but allows for continued development in that subdivision. So we're pleased to see that. Last night, one of the actions council took was accepting the improvements for Edgewater 6 plat, a plat you approved a few months ago that has 50-some lots in it. So we'll see building permit activity occurring in that subdivision as well. So we're pleased to see that occur. The other item on the agenda, it's actually time for our annual review of the UDC. Feels like this is a continual item for our consideration, but we do it in June every year. This, so far as we look at the amendments, it's going to be minor compared to what we looked at last year. We don't have any significant changes, but some things that we do need to address. So we'll present that to you for discussion on June 5th, and if it's something you feel we need to change the code, then we can do a formal amendment. But we like to get that done in June of each year, and so we'll be bringing that forward to you. Nothing scheduled beyond that at this point in time, but a number of projects are in the discussion phases, and we'll have a busier summer than we had last year for development activity, the way it's currently looking. So excited about that. And then at this point, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Rokos to give you an update on Public Works.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carteret. Mr. Rokos.
Good evening. I'll give you an update on 3 projects that you can see going on or about to see going on. The first one is on Fox Ridge, right there by Dean. That project, it will be completed, and we'll have a grand opening this Friday, and we're very excited about that. And hopefully, as you've driven by, you've seen that that road has been paved and curbs and sidewalks are being poured, and it should be just about all completed this week. The second project is Johnston Drive, just off of Dean also. You can see that we're moving a lot of dirt there, and that project's proceeding as planned. And you'll see more and more dirt being moved as all the drainage has been already constructed. The last project was 155th Street Bridge, which I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in. I get multiple calls per week on that project. It was approved last night also by the council, and once all the contracts are all signed and all the bonds and paperwork's done, we should be having a pre-construction conference here very shortly. So I know people have questions about it. That's where we're at right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Rokos. If there are no questions, I'll open the floor for public comment. If anyone from the public would like to speak, this is yet one more time tonight. And seeing no one, I'll open the floor for commission member comment. Where shall I start? Where shall I start? Commissioner Wiggins.
I have no comment, actually.
Yeah,
thank you.
That works. I think we'll just go on down this side. Commissioner Armstrong.
I'll second that, no comment.
All right, Commissioner Meiske.
I will not be here June 5th, and I'm also not going to be around July 3rd. So I'm going to miss those two. I'll be in California June 5th, and I'll be in Florida July 3rd. So
Well, you're getting to see both ends of the country.
That's it.
East and west. Wow. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Bowie.
No comment. Thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Pfizer.
Well, I'll just make my weekly or biweekly plug for Summer Scene is June 10th or 9th, 9th or 10th. But it'll be at the TB Hanna station, and it's done by the Arts Commission, and everyone should go because it'll be a great time, and we need to support the arts.
Do you have a chair that we can sit in?
I will have a chair that you can sit in. I'm working on it right now, so it's kind of a secret, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Crane.
No comment.
Mayor Turnbow.
Just to reiterate what Greg said, the Fox Ridge Drive extension is going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony this Friday at 4:30. It'll be there at Old Paint and where Fox Ridge crosses it just before it goes over to Dean Avenue. If anybody'd like to attend that, we'll be there at 4:30 for a ribbon cutting. It's one of 2 roadways. You've seen the other one, the work's being done on it. What's the name of that one that's going through?
Johnston Drive.
Johnston Drive, yeah. It's cutting through over to Dean as well. So we're pretty excited about those additional accesses. And once the 155th Street Bridge is done, my phone will cool off as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Turnbow. I just have a couple of things. So we got an invitation from Foxwood Springs. It's addressed to Planning and Zoning Board members, City of Raymore. And I won't read the entire thing, but this is their 40th anniversary celebration, Foxwood Springs. And if I can paraphrase, in 1974, Merle Mott donated 55 acres of land that she and her husband had farmed for years to the National Benevolent Association of the Disciples of Christ. She dreamed of a community where seniors could live independently and be cared for when they needed assistance, a visionary concept for its time. And I'll skip on down and say, purchased by Brookdale in 2005, Foxwood Springs is now backed by the largest owner and operator of senior living communities throughout the United States, and it's one of Raymore's largest employers. Tuesday, June 12th, 2 to 5 p.m., and Mayor Turnbow, I suppose you know this already, Mayor's proclamation at 3:30 p.m. The event will be held in the Bromwell Lodge, and that's right in from the main entrance, as I recall. Complimentary refreshments. So again, that's Tuesday, June 12th, 2 to 5 p.m. And I don't know if this is an invitation to the public or just to the commission, but anyway, we're grateful for the invitation.
They mailed invitations to all us old people.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, do you know any more? Is this basically an open invitation to the community?
It is. Yeah, they'd like to have as many people from the community attend as possible. They're very proud of where they've come to be. And as Commissioner Crane just said, they're probably advertising for residents as well.
And it looks better and better.
All right. And I'd like to thank staff, Mr. Gress, Mr. Cataret, Mr. Zur, Mr. Rokos. And we do appreciate all the time that you put into keeping us running. And thank you to the commissioners. It's nice to see almost everyone here tonight. And as little twists and turns occur, it's always good to have a full commission so that we can deal with little details like having a quorum and getting a vote to pass cases. So I do appreciate that. Unless anyone else has anything to add, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All right. Rewind the tape. What happened there? Okay. So I think I'm going to call it a motion by Commissioner Bowie to
Quick second by the mayor.
adjourn. Quick second by Mayor Turnbow. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. And we have 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. Whew. Wow.